I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
5-year-old Emma was sitting on her grandmother Judy's lap as Judy read her a Christmas story. And from time to time, Emma would take her eyes off the book and reach up to touch her grandma's wrinkled face. And then she would touch her own face. Finally, Emma spoke up and she said, "Grandma, did God make you?" And Emma said, "Yes, God made me a long time ago." And then she said, "Grandma, did God make me too?" And Emma said, or Grandma said, "Yes, God made you too, but not so very long ago." And then Emma reached up and touched her grandma Judy's face. And then she touched her own face. And she said, "Oh, God's getting better, isn't he?" You know, in a sense, God is getting better because we're getting better. Because God, our perception of God, of course, God is in somewhere up in a cloud, but God is us. God is the essence of who we are. And as we shift our thinking and we shift the way that we are in the world, we could say that it appears like God's getting better. But the truth of it is, we are lifting our consciousness up and experiencing the wholeness and the completeness and the allness that we are. I hope that you're enjoying Brené Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness, as much as I am. Numerous people have come to me and said that they've been really touched and moved by this book and the truth that Brené Brown shares in this book. And I had some fun with this book, and today's lesson was inspired by this quote. Brené Brown says, "True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. It requires us to be who we are." And so I was inspired by this quote, and so I kind of took a little bit of a veer of my own to find a truth for me in this quote. And so I'm titling this lesson today, Surrendering to the Divine. We can truly be who we are if we surrender to the divine within us. And that is to open up, to be expansive, and to connect with that divine essence that is the truth of who we are. And to be in that so totally. Isn't that what you want? Don't you, knowing this truth, don't you want to experience the divine that you are in its wholeness, yes? So let's explore how we do that. Within each of us, there is a direct connection to the divine. There is a part of our being, your being, that is beyond the personal self, beyond our thoughts and our feelings and our wants and our desires and our sort of limited thinking. There is this connection with the divine that when we can get into that place, we can see ourselves and the world from a higher view, to be present to the essence of God that is everywhere. You can constantly choose to identify with that part rather than the divine part, rather than the psyche or the body or the thinking. And when you do this, a natural transformation begins to take place within you. Because this is our natural state, to connect with that allness and not be distracted by the fears and the doubts and the limitations that we can appear to see, or that we can see the appearance of in our world. Over time, as you observe this transformation, you will see what it's like to be coming towards your divine self. When you focus on the moments, when you are experiencing the divine, and you can begin to move towards that presence and say, this is the truth of who I am. This is who I want to be. This is how I want to live my life in that place of forgiveness and peace and love. You can know the nature of the divine. People say, well, what's God like? Well, you have all the clues you need. You can know the nature of the divine by looking into the mirror of your transformed self. If you look at the places and how you are when you're fully experiencing love, when you are totally at peace, when you're totally in this place of non-judgment, you're experiencing the divine. That's the truth and the essence of what the divine is. It is those aspects of you that are so pure and so real. And you feel them from time to time, don't you? 3 of you. All right. But that's what we're aspiring to achieve and to be, is that essence. And you can know the divine by looking into the mirror of your transformed self. When you're in that place of totally feeling and experiencing love. Over time, you'll drift away from the feelings of tension and anxiety. The entire cloud of lower vibrations will peer further and further away from you inside. It's like the more that we're on this path, the more that we're living our truth, we can still get a sense for the doubts and the fears, right? They still pass through our awareness, but we don't attach ourselves to them. It's like, oh, wow, interesting. There goes a fearful thought. How about that? Isn't that cool that I don't have to grab onto that? There goes a thought of limitation, but I don't have to grab onto it. I don't have to call it mine. I don't have to engage my emotions in that fear. I can just say, thank you, God. I'm living in peace. I'm living in truth. I'm living in the essence of spirit. I'm living in my divine self. The cloud may still be there, but if you don't identify with it or hold on to it, it can no longer hold on to you. As we release the lower vibrations, we naturally stop thinking that they're you, or that there's anything that you have to do about them. As you let go of them, your spirit moves upward. The spiritual path is about letting go of the things that don't serve us, letting go of the doubts and the fears, and lifting up and rising to the divine thoughts of love and peace. You naturally begin to center more and more on the spiritual part of your being. And you do this by reaching for spirit and letting go of the rest. Of really acknowledging those times when you're feeling in the presence of truth and love, and embracing that, and then letting go of everything else. So we're letting go and we're rising up. The personal self can't touch spirit. You must release the personal self as you let go and willingly release the physical, the emotional, and the mental aspects of your being. Spirit becomes your state. You realize that you, too, can have deep spiritual experiences and be your divine self. because that's who you are. That's really all that you are. So how do you really know anything about your divine nature? And you know your divine nature as you recognize your oneness with God, your oneness with Spirit, your oneness with divine mind. Yeah? Because it's everywhere. A lot of this is about taking off the veil of the physical and the mental and the emotional and being able to be present to the love and to the light that's always here around you and around me all the time. Jesus said, I and the Father are one. Jesus also said that all the things that I can do, you can do also. So if Jesus and the Father are one, certainly we and the divine are one. The Spirit are one. Have any resistance to this idea? Sometimes the ego says, oh no, churches have been saying for thousands of years, no, you're not the divine. You're the lowly. But the truth is, we are the divine. That's the big secret that's been kept from us for over 2,000 years. You are the divine. You are the one. You have the power. You have the wisdom. You have the love to be the essence of the divine. Ultimately, the only way to know about your divine nature is by letting your being merge into the divine and see what happens to you. And I invite you during your meditation time to merge into the divine, to call upon this divine presence that is within you and just say, show me. Let me be there. Let me feel it. I want to be present and occupy the space of the divine and be totally present in that. This is universal consciousness, and the qualities of the beings who have attained this deep state are similar in every religion. Many spiritual teachers have moved into this place with their own divine, and they're no different than you. You have that same ability to experience and express your divine self. Take it. Live it. Be it. So what happens to one who connects with their divine self? What does that look like? What does that feel like? So you'll experience this. You will feel unconditional love for all creatures. Can you do that? Are you willing to do that? If you truly want to experience your divine self, then you get to experience unconditional love for everyone, for man, woman, children, animals, all life. What happens to one who connects with their divine self? You will experience and have the ability to see every child with the love that you have for your children, with the love that you have for yourself. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and the person said, I hate children. I do not like children. Right? And it shocked me. I was like, oh my God. So there's a huge block that's keeping that person from experiencing the fullness of love. And I thought, I bet that person doesn't really love their own inner child. There's some kind of a fear or doubt or block that's happening there. And so, we don't have to have children to love others with the same love that we love our inner child. Are you willing to do that? Doing these things brings you to that place where you experience your divine. And some of this stuff is about kind of stepping out of the box. Yeah? we're entering a time in the world, and I'll be talking about this more next week, where there is so much separation, and there's so much hatred, and there's so much condemning of people, and people are standing in their opinions so much that we have the appearance of seeing separation and hatred on this planet now as large as it's ever been. And it's time for us to move past these places, to move past our own opinions, to move past our separations, to move past the place of condemning and judging other people. Can you see that? Don't you know that? If you watch the news, which I hope you don't, but you'll see, we are on the brink of a whole shift in consciousness, because we cannot continue as a people on this planet and continue to stand in our own agendas and make everybody else wrong. Yeah? This world is changing. And for us to continue to exist in this world, we need to step into a new way of being. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we have to do that on a political front. We have to do it with ourselves. Because our leaders are expressing thoughts and ideas and beliefs that many people have in their consciousness. And if we're going to change the world, we need to start with us. Changing the way we think and the way we are and the way we believe, and to be able to hold other people and their differences in love and light and peace and harmony. Yeah? So, back to my talk. So what happens to one who connects with their divine self? You will experience and see every person as a lovely flower with its own color, with its own expression, with its own shape, with its own sound. Really be able to see the harmony that exists everywhere. And that's what we notice. That's what we see when we look at other people. You will, I will, we will appreciate and honor everyone and in everything. Honor everyone's opinions. Honor everyone's beliefs. No longer will we be separate and separated by our own judgments. You will know that God is love and that you are love. And totally be that love. We talk a lot about love. It's really Jesus' basic teaching, and most teachers' basic idea is love. Are we really willing to do that? Are we really willing to love people that disagree with us? People that have different opinions than us? People that have different religions than us? Can we really love them so much that they can share who they are, even though it's different than us, and we can still feel harmony and love with them? I love this story from the Bible, from the book of Luke. And it's, some people call this story Jesus anointed by a sinful woman. It comes from Luke chapter 7, verse 36, and I'll read some of it. When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, Jesus went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who had lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet, she began weeping. And she knelt down and she wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped his feet with her hair, kissing them and pouring perfume on them. When the Pharisee who had invited Jesus saw this, he said to himself, "If this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of a woman she is, that she is a sinner. Then Jesus turned toward the woman and said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? I came to your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman, from the time I entered, has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little loves little." And Jesus said to her, "Your sins are forgiven." The other guests began to say amongst themselves, "Who is this who even forgives sins?" Jesus said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace." Simon didn't see the woman. He really didn't see who she was. He saw her through her misconceptions, or his misconceptions of her, thinking of her as a sinful woman. Therefore, he didn't see her. How often do we see people based on our own judgments and our own fears and our own doubts, and not see them for the truth of who they are? But Jesus was different. He saw her. He saw the truth of who she was. He saw a person, not the pain and the corruption that life had pulled her into. He saw her. Simon missed the whole thing. Do you see this woman? This kind of idea rings to my heart. It's like, how can we truly see other people and not see them through our judgments, through our filtered vision, through our filtered concepts? Can we really see people for who they are and let go of our judgments? Let go of the conditioning that we've had that tells us that we're separate. Can we behold others in this love? I love to look at the metaphysics of things. So let's look at what are the metaphysics of part of the story. The story is so deep. But if you think about it, this woman walked into the room with a jar of alabaster perfume. And she stood at Jesus' feet and began to cry. And you know that Jesus looked at her and he saw the truth of who she was. And she knelt down at his feet and she began washing his feet with her tears. Why? Because in Jesus' gaze, she saw who she was. Because he looked at her with such love. It's not a coincidence. You know, the feet represent spiritual understanding. So as she's washing his feet, she is realizing the truth of who she is. She is beholding Jesus and recognizing herself in him. And that's what we bring to the world. To be able to hold and behold others in such love that what they see in us is that love. That's how this truth, this love, Jesus' essence, and the things that he shared with us move out into the world and heal ourselves, and this planet. As we see the world through the loving eyes of our divine self, the world changes in response to our gaze. Rumi said, I looked in temples and churches and mosques, but I found the divine within myself. Meister Eckhart said, the eye through which I see God is the same eye through which God sees me. My eye and God's eye are one eye, seeing, knowing, one love. One seeing, one knowing, one love. And I like to close with this little poem that I found in one of my favorite books titled Best Loved Unity Poems. And the poem is titled, The God I Know. The God I know is a God close by, not seated on a throne in a far-off sky. He is here on earth, reflected in trees, in mountains and flowers, in sweet summer breeze, in ocean's grandeur, in plains delight, in noontide glare, and in the stilly night, in children's prattle, in a manhood's prime, since the birth of worlds until the end of time. For the God I know, with a thought that's free, is the God of love found in you and me. I invite you to close your eyes. And take a deep breath, breathing into this moment, into your divine self. And I invite you to smile as you recognize the divine within. And to let this smile move through your mind, your body, your heart. Because this divine essence is smiling as you. It is a reflection of all divine love. Breathing in and smiling. How beautiful it is. How blessed we are to have this divine spark of love at the center of every cell and every space, every tissue, every atom. Is this divine? The divine self that says, here I am. And in this awareness, I invite you to close your eyes or just to be present in this moment and allow this love to circulate as you. And take just a moment in the silence just to experience your divine self. Breathing in and breathing out. Your divine self is inviting you along for the journey. Will you go? Will you remember? Will you be all that your divine self holds for you? Breathing in and breathing out. And gently allowing yourself to become present in this moment. Aware of and committed to being all that you are. The hero is in you. The divine is in you.
Where I live, there are rain.